Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And today on the show, we've got our great friend James. How you doing, James?
Doing great. How you doing, Jer?
What you been up to today?
Today just kind of busy. Was in the office this morning. Had a meeting. Probably head over to the tattoo shop later. Get some stuff looked at. Might be getting some new ink done. So
That's funny. I was thinking that last night. I need some new ink. I'm dying for it. So, want to get closer to my face, I think.
yeah.
So, why don't you tell us about yourself and your projects that you're working on?
All right. Well, yeah. Originally I'm from Waterford, which is right next to Pontiac, out in Oakland County. Grew up out there. Spent a lot of time between there and my grandma and grandfather's house in Lincoln Park. Kind of went back and forth in between the two. Had a lot of family down south in eastern Kentucky, down that way. So definitely had a very diverse upbringing, but gave me a chance to see a lot of different perspectives growing up. Went to high school out there, and actually in my past with my addictions, that's actually where it started, was in high school, going from a Catholic school from first grade to eighth grade, and then entering into a public school. Started using pain pills and smoking weed after I broke my arm. And that actually started spiraling out right there in 10th grade. Ended up getting kicked out of my high school due to drugs. So then entering into alternative ed and actually started selling drugs at that point.
Did the pain pills, just real quick question about that, were those prescribed at first and then drifted off into the black or gray market?
Well, I tried them before that were not prescribed, but I got prescriptions when they were given me after the accident. Kind of spiraled out, and then that led to non-prescribed pain pills.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. And I interrupted you a little bit. You started talking
good.
about selling weed and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So that definitely turned into, a big pastime activity, and then the whole social aspect of it, that kind of became even more involved. And I think that even actually became the addiction too. It's just, the meeting people, stuff like that, being involved in the social circles. And it just kind of spiraled out of control from there. I ended up being on probation, involved with the courts by the time I was 17.
And you were addicted to pills at that time?
By the time I was 17, I was actively using cocaine, ecstasy, Oxycontin, smoking weed, pretty much about everything under the sun.
So, after you're on probation, what are you, 18, 19, 20 at that time?
Yeah, I was 18, and actually when I was 18 years old, I actually had an apartment that got raided. I had a stolen gun in the apartment, a bunch of drugs in the apartment, went through court. So I ended up doing, it was 6 months in jail, lifetime probation. Did that. Went through a PA 511 program, which used to be in Waterford. It was cognitive behavior therapy based. CPI out there. Got out of there, did probation, got involved in the elevator trade. I was actually working for a guy who had a small company out of Heartland, Michigan. And that actually gave me some of the tools to start understanding small business on a level that I really didn't understand before. Because I'd started off just as a laborer for him, and after a few years, actively working with him, I got to the point where I was actually dealing with contractors, dealing with the state, doing some of his bookkeeping and things like that. And I really started understanding that, wow, this is actually really doable if you just take the time and kind of start to understand these things. And that gave me a little bit of insight as kind of what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what direction I wanted to go. It just kind of helped me understand that almost anything's possible if you actually take the time and the effort to get into it.
Yeah. Were you still using at the time?
At that time, I was socially using. I definitely got away from that path of dealing and that lifestyle at that time. But I think at that point, I was still more or less at the contemplation stage as far as, well, I don't need to use anything. I still use that as a minor coping skill as far as, oh, well, I'm going to de-stress, or, oh, it's the weekend, I'm going to go turn my brain off for a little bit. So I was still kind of messing around and kind of flirting with that line, and which actually ended up popping up later when I actually got bit by a spider and lost a big chunk of my arm up here. And I went to the hospital. I was in the intensive care for about a week and stayed in Henry Ford in Detroit for about 2 weeks total. And they were giving me Oxycontin, Dilaudid, and morphine all at the same time. I left the hospital. They given me Vicodins, so that wasn't going to hold it. So of course, I still was associated around some of those circles, that led to heroin use. So there went that out of control once again. That led me down another several years of pretty much just destroying everything that I'd built up at that point. Family relationships, financials, all that just went to the wayside, which that was actually what ended up leading me to go to prison for resisting arrest. And that was a fun couple of years stretch. And
So did you stay for 2 years in prison?
nope. What had happened with that is it was about 7 months in the county, and then they wanted me to do, it was another cognitive behavioral therapy program, which I ended up going there for about 4 months. And I want to say I had about 2 days left and I got kicked out for, I was showing a guy how to light a cigarette using 2 batteries and some nail clippers 2 days before I finished the program. And
that sounds like a valuable skill you were passing along.
Ingenuity. Right, that's what I tried saying, but they did not agree with me.
I want you to teach me before some other time, not on live TV.
Yeah, I got you. So I ended up getting kicked out of that program. Spoke with my probation agent, and so in lieu of those 2 days, I ended up having to do another 6 months in the county. Did that, and then I gotten out and was on the zero tolerance program through Oakland County, which I was living about 40 minutes away from the courthouse in Pontiac. I was living with my mom. They wanted me to drug test 2 to 3 times a week. Same with PBT. I had no driver's license. So I was getting a ride for my mom, and then I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings out 45 minutes the opposite direction by Brighton. So there was an issue where I ended up missing some testing, and I was getting violated. So I just ended up saying, screw it. I went back out and started using. And then probation got revoked, so they sentenced me to prison. And then I ended up doing, it was like 14 or 16 months over in Carson City.
So man, a couple of things. I forget what those are called. The breathalyzers. You said PBT, right?
Yeah.
That's what that is for anybody who didn't know what that was. And man, it's so tough. And was your mother helping you like with rides?
Oh yeah,
she
was helping me out big time. So I mean, she was even driving me to work. Me and a buddy or two of mine that I got jobs up there in the same kitchen. She was driving us back and forth. So I mean, that's eating up her time, gas.
It's a horrible, horrible experience that we put people through to get them to blow, to drop, and all of that. And it's so stressful and difficult. Do you think it was helping you though? Was it keeping you clean?
Well, it was clean as far as, the consequence associated with it. But along with that, I also feel there's a lot more productive way we can go about that. And that also kind of ties into a lot of the vision with working with Lifeboat, the recovery community organization we've got going now, into dealing with the probation officers out here that have been very receptive, as well as the police department, and how we approach addiction and ways to help individuals combat that and live more productive lives.
Well, I mean, people will look at your story here and say, all right, he was doing drugs in high school and stuff like that. But a lot of people do drugs in high school. I mean, most of the high school kids do drugs or experiment with it at some level. But not every one of them ends up, going to prison for something related to their addiction. But you got bit by a spider and got Oxycontin and morphine and a prescription of Vicodin. It sounds like you got addicted in the hospital. And once you had, if I'm going to say that disease, you got punished for it. They tried to beat it out of you for the next several years. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say mostly. I think the addiction was pretty much rolling with other substances. I think the pharmaceutical end of it probably just exacerbated the problem. But I think even on my own, I was probably already rolling at a pretty good clip down that road.
Did you ever feel like it was a medical issue?
You mean the addiction itself?
Yeah.
I'd always kind of gone against that idea because I always wanted to bring it back to, no, I was in control. No, I got this. This is just what I'm choosing to do. Because I've been seeing counselors for since I was a little kid. Was definitely raised in a domestically unstable house, highly abusive father. Um, you know, at one point he tried shooting me and my brother down in Kentucky. I'd seen him beat my mom, break the dishes, pull her by her hair through the broken glass. A lot of that. So my grandma actually had me in counseling at a young age. And I guess I always kind of separated the two. And it wasn't until, the last few years when I really started getting down into the cognitive behavioral therapy and understanding where a lot of the learned behaviors come from. And I really started analyzing those things and how they were actually one intertwined item versus two completely separate issues. And I think that understanding has actually helped me a lot in moving forward. And I think that's where, a lot of the educational and understanding issues with this and dealing with the stigma is going to have a huge impact just in our recovery community.
Yeah. I I always feel like there's way too much punishment and not enough medical care or therapy or help like that. That's what you're trying to change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like that punishment isn't geared towards actually fixing the problem.
Yeah.
If we actually want to fix the problem, there's another approach that we can go about, or several other approaches we can go about. I mean, and that's going to be cheaper for the taxpayers. It's going to help our economy. It's going to help the cities that we live in if we actually address these issues and keep people connected and keep people striving versus just locking somebody away. And then you have a financial strain on that family as well as that individual and the taxpayers.
Yeah. So there's a continuum in the recovery world that starts with complete say no to drugs, abstinence, and you can't be anywhere around any of it. And then more on the maybe a harm reduction side, which is, at least stay alive to get the help that you need so that you can get into recovery. And then maybe even on a even further side, like when you look at like Portugal or something, who's completely decriminalized all of the drugs in the country, and the work they've been able to do by treating it as a health crisis. Will you talk about that continuum for us, or that spectrum even?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great layout of it because I feel like, the say no to drugs, completely avoid it. I think that's just completely unrealistic. I mean, especially when you look at just say the United States, and look how many people we have, how many subcultures we have as a country. It's going to be something that's ran across. And, me personally, I I'm here to help anybody no matter where they're at. I want to meet an individual where they're at, whether that be they want to be completely abstinent, whether somebody is just wants to be socially using, or if they are wanting to change but still kind of in that process of getting to a spot where they can actually put it down. I still want to be there to help that person at least do it safely. Excuse me.
Right.
They can do it safely and at least do it as healthy as possible. So, I mean, that even goes into, the hepatitis C virus spread.
Yeah.
And then,
We
with the overdoses, there's even phone lines available now. So if somebody's going to be using by themselves, they can call a phone number so they have somebody on the line with them. So if they, become unconscious, there's going to be somebody that knows where they're at to get first responders to that location.
Yeah. How do are users receptive to that? I've told a few about it, but they always kind of look hesitant. Like you're going to call a number and give them your name and address, or give them your address at least. It just all kinds of
Well,
seems
yeah.
scary.
Well, yeah, most definitely, because there's going to be some kind of hesitation there, because especially with that culture, you don't know who's using that phone number for what. I mean, there's the underlying, is this associated with law enforcement? kind of things like that. And that's where a big part of the community in itself comes in to actually validate that. Once people start understanding, like, no, this is something just here to help us. Once that word spreads and it becomes validated in that community, then they're much more utilized and the service becomes much more efficient. And that's why I think a lot of these ground level things like, peer recovery coaching, things like that, we're so much more effective than a clinical staff, but because we have that lived experience. We've been there. We're like, was it farmers insurance? We know a thing or two because we've done a thing or two.
Yeah.
We've been there. We get it.
Yeah.
And, us being able to kind of bridge those gaps and get the services to people that they need, because there's a lot of great programs out there, but the people offering them or trying to communicate them to people don't exactly know how to bridge that gap to get the right information to the right people and have that translate in an effective way.
Yeah. So that's kind of the one part of it. You mentioned Hep C. Will you expound on that a little bit more? And I might even throw a story in there or two.
I mean, the hepatitis C virus has exploded with the use of heroin in the last 20 years. Because I can remember being in high school is when I first remember heroin really getting popular again, and IV drugs, and just the hepatitis C numbers have just shot up exponentially. And with the harm reduction, you've got people, sharing needles on a constant basis. If you're sitting there trying to hustle up $20 to go get a pack of heroin, you're not going to have an extra $5 to go buy clean needles all the time. And those are going to get passed around. So if you have people available where you can just call a number and say, hey, you need new needles, get those changed out, that's touching on thousands of people right there in that spread.
Yeah. So like in Vancouver, when they put the street nurses out and were giving away needles and helping people be safe with Hep C and HIV for that matter, they eliminated the spread of Hep C and HIV by just that effort itself. So it's important that we do this, right?
Oh, most definitely. And you can even look at it from this standpoint. If you've got somebody out there not really associated with the drug community, okay, you break it down to somebody's financial statement for their taxes. You get so much of this money going in for your taxes. Okay, look at the hepatitis C treatments that are out there. You're looking at what, $50,000? Mm-hmm. How many of those people are on Medicaid? Right. So then you've got how many thousand, I was even saying how many million people are getting this treatment, that amount of money dealing with this crisis when it could be easily dealt with in a harm reduction standpoint to where we can cut it off before it even happens. That helps safety, that helps financially, that just helps almost every aspect across the board. So I find that hard to argue.
So tell us some stigmas about drug addiction and drug use that are completely false, but are popular that people think. Can you tell us some of those?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest ones, a lot of people tend to spread the rumor that, well, if they wanted to stop using, they would just stop. And then, with that, you see people in bad situations, involving substances. It's like, well, they could have a better life, but they just don't want to. They don't want to do the work and things like that. Because there's so many barriers with people in the substance use world that, there's legal barriers. Because if you've been through the criminal justice system, that is going to hold you up from job, from housing, things like that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add too, and then, with the co-occurring mental issues that usually stem with that or around that, you got all these things adding up and it makes it harder and harder to succeed once you go down that road.
Yeah. Tell us how addiction works. Can you do that? Or
I can say how it worked for me, personally.
I think that the crowd can hear that. Is that your phone ringing, or is that my phone ringing?
That's probably your phone ringing because I can't hear it.
I got it. Never mind. That's good. Then the crowd couldn't hear that. So, when somebody takes a drug, dopamines are released, and help me with the
serotonin.
Other word. Yeah, serotonin, and that cycle starts to become part of your memory, right? So just like we want to breathe, just like we want to eat, just like we like sweets, or maybe you don't like sweets, your body sees that and it wants it. And it starts to get really ingrained in your memory, and you start getting rewarded for taking this drug. And pretty soon you can't get away from that. It's not that you can just stop like that. It is your brain functioning the way it's supposed to function when it gets when it sees that it gets a lot of dopamines or serotonin from something. So, it's not that say no to drugs or zap, just quit. It takes a lot of work.
Well, yeah, because that ties in with your limbic system, and what that does is it ties to your natural survival skills.
Yep.
If something is pleasant, your body's going to go back to that. Your body has natural coping mechanisms it uses, and typically as addicts, we have something we don't want to deal with, or something that's unpleasant, or something of a negative connotation. We use those coping skills that our body knows are effective, and the path of least resistance. So once we start using those chemicals, it starts rewiring the brain. And it remembers, oh yeah, this was great. Go right back to that. And even with, alcohol, heroin, things like that, your body chemically wires to those. So when you're not using, it actually hits off your receptors, and you might feel like you're actually dying. Like when it comes to withdrawal or cravings, your body is actually sending signals that I am in pain. I am in danger of dying. I need this now. And that's the danger, a lot of that rewiring. And it's not easy to reprogram that. Because a lot of those neural pathways get very ingrained, especially with prolonged use.
And the triggers that remind you of that. So someone could be in prison for 20 years. They don't use in prison. They get out. They go to a neighborhood where they used to use. The store on the corner triggers them, and it's right back to where they were when they went in prison.
Right. And that's just with those neural pathways. You might be in prison for 20 years. But if you haven't been in that situation and then come back to it, what's that old neural pathway since you were there last time? It's just like you went right back that long ago, because you haven't had to activate that thought process, and you're right back to where you were dealing with the same thing 20 years ago.
All right. So now we've established your credibility as an expert in this field. Tell us about Lifeboat a little bit more.
Yeah, Lifeboat is a nonprofit recovery community organization. We just got rolling a couple months ago. Actually, was doing a few things in the community, talking to a few people around here, yourself included, kind of see what we could do to get some stuff moving around here. And Dr. Deborah Smith, who actually owns Wellness INX, another company that I worked for in McLaren, Greater Lansing, in the hospital over here, who I'm a Project Assert team member, one of the wellness advocates, and we address individuals with substance use in the emergency department to help them navigate services. She informed me that they actually had a nonprofit. They got their 501c3 and got that going, and thought it would be a good fit. So kind of went over there. They had some office space, and we had a very similar goal in mind of how do we create a place for people in recovery to connect and to be able to be productive in that space and start breaking all these barriers that there are for success in recovery. And we started looking at the areas of, continuing education, peer support, the criminal justice system, and then even skills like as far as employability, things like that. And we really kind of started from the ground up a couple months ago. And in the meantime, we've got several different pathways, support groups that are in there right now, because there are so many pathways. All of them are valid, because each individual recovery's pathway is just that. It's their pathway. Because there's not one path to the top of the mountain. There are many.
Yeah.
And the broader your base, the sturdier your foundation you're going to have. And it's our opinion that everybody should be respected in that path. And we just want to be there and available to help them however we can. And with that, we are actually offering meeting space for people in person and on Zoom. Dealing with COVID, it shut down almost all of the in-person meetings, almost everywhere. Yeah. And even in the drug community, that's a social realm, because you're shutting down all these in-person meetings. Addiction's not taking a day off. Addiction isn't shutting down because it doesn't have a mask on. So we figured it's best to, get out there. We are essential. So we need to put our money where our mouth is, get in there and try and service the people that we feel need it. So we want to make that available to them any way possible.
Yeah. Hey, I want to throw a question up that Kiana has out in the crowd. I've heard people say that stopping an addiction cold turkey is unhealthy. Would you agree with that?
On a certain standpoint, I would agree with that because alcohol and benzodiazepines, there is a risk of seizure and even possibly death with just cold turkeying that. There are very many medically supervised detox programs. That would be what I advise, to go that route, because you never know what kind of underlying health problems that somebody may have and how different substances could be affecting them.
Detoxing from alcohol is one of the number one killers when people are getting off from or stopping to use.
Definitely.
Yeah. And she just wants to give you a shout out that she loves that you've taken the difficulty in your life and made it a treasure. So,
no, I appreciate that.
She's nice. She'll make you cry if you're not careful. So I lost a little. So what are some of the things that Lifeboat needs some help with? What can the community do? Well, first of all, should the community care about this? We kind of established, the financial reasons, and these are our neighbors? Are these our kids? Are these our people getting addicted?
Well, that's exactly it, because it is our neighbors, it is our kids, it is people we work with. I mean, addiction has no limits. It touches on every single socioeconomic group in the world. And as far as the addiction community is everyone. It's not just one group of people. It's not just one class of people. This is all of us. We all have family members, ourselves. We're all connected in that, and there's no getting away from it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and by doing a lot of things we're doing, I was going to add in, because we've recently, since we've been rolling, got partnered up with Michigan Works, had some great conversations with them over there, getting set up to be offering the job skills training that Michigan Works offers, being able to connect people with, they have a closet for job interview clothes, things like that, get people better equipped to be able to go interview and get some of these positions that they might not have in the past, get them some of the skills that they need. We've also been talking with, excuse me. We've also been speaking with probation agents from the Lansing area. I forget the exact numbers of the district, but we've been speaking with them, and that's actually part of, we've got a rapid response coalition for the overdoses in the Lansing capital area, which we touch base with people 72 hours after reported overdose, dealing with first responders on that.
So I want to stop you there for a second. You said overdose and then you touch base with them. I think most people think that overdose is dying, but it's not, right? Overdose is when you get over the dose that you should have, I guess.
Yes. That is a common misconception. Overdose is not death. I mean, you can die from an overdose if there's no one around or anything like that. But I've actually got an interesting story I'll share with you here in a second. But typically within the statistics show that within that first 72 hours, if we connect with somebody, because typically we are working with a social worker, somebody from our coalition, we have them in the coalition, but as a team, typically we would like somebody from the law enforcement agency, a social worker, and one of us as peer recovery coaches to speak with that person, see how they're doing, kind of give a brief assessment on what level of care they need, whether it be, getting into a detox program and a residential program, if they're in need of maybe some intensive outpatient counseling or just regular outpatient, or maybe even just need a peer recovery coach they can come see on a regular basis. Social supports, things like that. If they want to start getting to some meetings, come up to the community center, and just kind of getting a little bit of that social interaction, getting them connected, because they might not even be in the contemplation stage yet. They might be fine with what they're doing and don't see a problem with it. But I feel like that connection right there, if they start seeing another viable path, that, hey, maybe I can get out of it. Maybe I can kind of slowly start changing some of these things. A lot of the dominoes kind of start falling into place at that point. And then even if somebody's at the standpoint where they still want to go out there and do their thing and keep using, we also offer, the clean needles, things like that. Because if they're going to do that, that's where we at least want to keep them safe. And the same as the phone number we talked about before. If they're going to do that, we at least want to help them do it in a safe way to they're not putting themselves or others at harm.
Yeah. So I want the crowd out there that might not understand addiction to imagine for a second that you've just done something that almost killed you. You probably had to be revived. You might have needed Narcan. You might have had to gone to the hospital. And right after that, you are ready to do it again. You're ready to go back in. And that fact it's always my touch point that this is something much deeper than somebody just being irresponsible. I think we blame the person with substance use disorder. We've been throwing the word addict around and addiction and all of that a little bit. Proper term is substance use disorder. We don't want to use addiction or addict. We don't want to use junkie. We don't want to use words like that, because that then gives us an image of who this is and it depersonalizes it. My daughter died of a fentanyl overdose. She was a heroin addict for 12 years. I didn't expect that. I didn't think that was going to happen. We didn't raise her to be something that, that we thought would go down that route, but it happened to us, and it can happen to anybody, right?
I 100% agree.
And it happens to older people. It's happened a lot more to older people as they get the Oxycontins in their medical or their medical delivery. I'm not even going to call it healthcare. So, yeah. You want to tell us your story?
Yeah, I've got an interesting one because I can remember I was headed down to Detroit. I was going to pick up some stuff. I was going down to like 94 and Bewick area. I was around there quite a bit. And I was going down there. I'd stopped at my buddy's house, picked some stuff up. I'd got the bright idea I was going to go use again because at that point I was on parole and I was still working. So stopped by there. I bought a bag. I'd used a little bit while I was there, and I fell right out. I had overdosed right there. At that point, my friend's house I was at, they took me on the front porch. We're sitting there dumping water on me. I kept kind of waking up and going back out. That happened for a few minutes. They had called the police. And then I remember the police car showing up, and I'm kind of waking up. As soon as I seen the police car, I got back up, woke right back up when I seen the cop car. And they're like, "Oh, now you wake up. Okay, you see the cops are here. Now you get up." They're like, "Yeah, that figures." So I'm sitting there having a conversation with the cop. He's like, "Are you going to be good?" Because he was going to take me to the hospital. At that point, I didn't know where I was going. He's like, "Look, at this point, are you going to be good? You can ride the front seat. If you're going to be a dick, I'm going to throw you in the back." I was like, "I'll be good." So I got in the back. I got in the front seat of the car. He took me to the hospital. I was over there. I remember falling back asleep. They gave me some Narcan. I ended up laying in the hospital bed for several hours. But I remember getting back up. I'm like, "Oh crap! I got to work today." I was completely out of it. Didn't have my phone. And then I went over to the desk. I was like, "No, I need to get back to my car." She's like, "Where's your car?" I told her. And she's like, "Oh, honey, you think your car is still there?" I'm like, "Oh, honey, I know my car's still there." So I got a shuttle over to the house. My car was there. It was pulled in the back. They took everything out of the car, so nothing got stolen. Went back, drove back home. I had to call my girlfriend, let her know that I relapsed. I still had the hospital stickers on me from the EKGs and everything. And it was just, one of those things. It was, because I'd OD'd before, but never really went to the hospital, things like that. And once again, I jumped right back into that position because, my ego got in the way. I'm smart enough to know how to do this and not have that happen. It played on that ego part of it. Like, oh, I'm just going to, do this. It's been a while, have some fun. That was not the case. And it was just that easy where my better thinking got the best of me.
So did your friends that called the police get in trouble?
No, they didn't.
Will you tell us why?
Yeah, I will tell you why. Because in that initial conversation with the police officer, he was asking me, he's like, "You come over here and get high?" I was like, "Nope."
Oh,
He's like, you sure? I was like, nope. I'm like, I got high on the way over here. I just wanted to see my friend. And he kept pushing me. He's like, okay. So, I mean, he tried, but I just kind of stuck to it. I didn't even know about that till later because when I went back and got my car, they were like, man, you a real dude. Like, you didn't even tell, you wasn't even awake. You wasn't even telling us. I was like, yeah, I didn't even remember that.
so they should have been protected under the Good Samaritan law, though, too, right?
Um, I'm not familiar with that.
It's if somebody is overdosing, a lot of times their friends might leave them because they're scared of getting in trouble for using with them or even supplying it to them. But and also they're scared to apply Narcan because they think they're at risk of if something goes wrong, they're going to be liable for it. But both of those things are false. If you call the police to or you call 911 to save somebody's life, you're covered under the Good Samaritan law, and you should not be searched. You should not, nothing like that. You should be clear and free to go. And everybody needs to know that because people die because their friends are scared. Or it might not even be their friends, the acquaintances they are with.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you told me about that because I had heard about it, but I wasn't sure on all the
Yeah. So,
specifics.
anyways, want to make sure to get that out there. And then another thing I want to make sure to get out is that, you know, I've done a lot of like Narcan certification where I've gone and spoke to groups about my daughter dying and why they think, you know, why I think they should get Narcan and how to use Narcan. And I've had people say, well, I don't know anybody that would ever need that. And I just want you to, you know, Narcan and what's the thing for a bee sting?
Yeah, EpiPens.
EpiPens. These are things you should have in your first aid. This
Oh,
is,
most definitely. And that's one thing I've found, you know, being around any city in general, because I travel with 3 Narcans in my backpack constantly, because you never know when you're going to run across somebody who's on the street. I just had a friend contacted me the other day. He ran across somebody that was on the street. They pulled the car over and he Narcan somebody right there. So, and you never know out of your friends who might be using. A lot of people keep it under wraps and you never know.
yeah.
And at that point, you know, you just having that, you never know when you can save somebody's life.
Well, even
You
your
know.
spouse can hide that from you, right?
Oh yeah.
And so get some Narcan. And if you've got a public restroom in your facility and you don't have Narcan, you are irresponsible.
Yes, very much so. And just on that topic, also, that is another thing that we are offering through Lifeboat is Narcan trainings, and we're also partnered up with MDHHS. We offer Narcan if people want to come in and get themselves some. Come on in. We have it in stock.
Yeah. So I love it, James. So how would you summarize your mission?
I would summarize it just by saying, as Lifeboat, we're a group of individuals with a shared vision that we want to break down barriers for recovery. We want to help our community by giving people all the available tools necessary to create and maintain growth. You know, give people the educational tools. We want to make an impact on Lansing by helping everybody achieve more and do better and doing it on a scale where people really have to contend with the impact that we're making.
Yeah, I like that. What do you do every damn day to make that mission happen?
What I do every damn day is I do my workout at night and I just kind of go over and ask myself, what did I do today that contributed to me making an impact on the world?
Yeah. So Kiana's asking us a question again. How can she get some Narcan?
Yeah, Kiana. If you would like to pick up some Narcan, you can come to our office. We are actually located at 913 West Holmes in Suite 285. If you would like to call us, the number is 517-977-1772. You can get a hold of us or stop in there. We're typically there. Usually 11 to 4 is a guaranteed, Monday through Friday. I am there Sunday afternoons, typically 1:30 to about 5 also. I mean, just touch base with us and we'll get you taken care of.
And are the pharmacies still giving it to people who have health insurance?
I'm not sure if they are or not.
So you might be able to check with the pharmacy you use, Kiana, and show them your health insurance card if you have health insurance or Medicaid or Medicare. And then the other thing is there's other organizations. So I'll just say the Fledge that you're helping us get more Narcan, but we have it on site as well to pass out. But not trying to steal any of your.
Oh no, you're good. Hey,
So,
the most important thing is making it available to people. That's the goal.
so Luna Brown wants to know, is that in the Kroger complex? And what's up, Luna?
Yep, we are in that brown L-shaped office building right there. We are in door C, upstairs, all the way to the right.
All right. So behind the village, Kiana, I think you know where the village of Lansing is. So we daisy chained the shows together. And yesterday on the show, I had Savage Joy, and she wants to pass a question to you through me. And her question to you was, what was that deciding moment or thing that happened where you said, I don't want to use anymore. I want to go help people. What were those epiphanies or those moments that made it happen? Or were they even moments at all?
Well, I'd say it was probably 7 throughout the years that probably linked together. I mean, it was probably sitting in some institutions and, being a really young guy and just thinking, I'm just messing around right now. I'm young. But then, you're looking at that old timer who's doing the same thing I am. And then it just kind of goes over my head. And then just getting a little bit older, kind of putting those things together. Like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy. And then I can remember going back to, there's a punk rock song. I was listening to it one day and it's just, are you a leader? Or are you a follower? What's your plan for tomorrow? And just kind of goes on like that and goes into, I started going back to my ideology of being an old punk rocker. I'm here to change the world. Like, I can do a lot that's going to make an impact. And like, what am I doing besides wasting my time? And I really just got looking at, am I really living what I say I'm living? And my buddy had a t-shirt that cracks me up. It was like, how are you going to dismantle the system when you're drunk by noon, dude? And it just kind of got in that motivation. It's like, you know what? No, if I'm going to do this and do it right, I need to be on point just for that. It's not about wasting time. It's time to get stuff done. And as a collective, as a community, I can't do it, but we can all do it if we work together.
What kept the hope alive? I say the phrase often that hope is the last to die. What kept the hope alive for you to keep moving through that?
I guess just going through my past. I mean, I just had to notice that when things were going bad, it was because it was things that I did. I put myself in those positions and I just had to keep working. Like, yeah, there was circumstances that were negative and there were bad things that happened that were out of my control. But I also had to have my own part of accountability associated with that. And I don't know, I'm just a hard-headed and stubborn individual, and I wasn't going to take that for an answer.
Yeah. Do you think that some of the ODs where people pass they've just lost all hope and it's also a suicide?
Yeah, very much so. Because I know there had been several times when I had felt that way. I just felt like hope was lost. And it was very fleeting, but it almost felt like, well, this is it. I guess this is just going to be the end of it. I'm just going to continue doing this and I'll just die like that. Yeah, and that's a really shitty spot to be in. But, that's some of the depths that it takes you. And I almost feel like those are some of the biggest spots to learn and grow from. Because I feel like a lot of that pain is some of the biggest motivating factor as far as change is concerned. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody has to go through some kind of cataclysmic pain or event like that, but just from my experience, those are the big motivating factors.
Yeah. And I want to speak as a parent who lost a child. The courts, they told us to be tough on her and to do tough love, and people would give us advice, kick her out if she's going to keep doing that and all of these things. And it was hell for 12 years. It was hell not knowing what to do and not knowing how to help her. And I just want to say, don't use tough love. They need somebody with substance use disorder needs all of the love that they can possibly get all of the time. And if you think that 5, 10, 12 years is tough, I got to live for the rest of my life. And it's a lot tougher to not have her as a heroin addict than it was to have her as a heroin addict. So hang in there and be tough. And there are tons of people that want to help.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that a little bit, Jerry, just on that sentiment, because this is one thing we even revisited last night from Refuge Recovery. And in the very beginning, and it talks about doing the compassionate thing. And the compassionate thing isn't always necessarily what the nicest thing is, but it's telling those hard truths, but doing it in a way it's compassionate to work towards fostering positive outcomes, positive growth. To have those hard conversations, but not doing it in a combative way, and watching the timing of it and watching the way that we come across and things like that, and collectively working towards the goal. That is doing the compassionate thing, working towards something positive.
Yeah. And maybe when they're come home high isn't the right exact time to talk to them about, the goals and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah, I can remember from experience coming home high and having those conversations. Not happening, because it's not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. So tomorrow on the show, I've got a good friend of mine from high school. He went to Princeton, was an educator for a long time. He's been a principal of schools around the area. And we're going to talk about education and how we think that's broken tomorrow. What question would you like me to pass to Richard?
I would like to ask him, what can we do in our community of Lansing to change the educational system to better give people the tools to change the economic status of people in need?
And I love that question. I was really excited when you gave me the draft of it earlier. I like how you've rephrased it too. What if that same exact question back to you? What can you do? What can we do within either recovery or healthcare or whatever to give people the tools to start clawing their way out of poverty, basically, or change the economics of Lansing?
Well, my answer to that would be make funding more readily available for places like Lifeboat Recovery Network Center, so that we can actually help people get these tools and actually use them and put these systems in place to where we can make it available to people.
Yeah.
So they can actually take the time to start utilizing some of these things.
Yeah. So, there's charity and there's investment, and you can give charity and you can give away food all day long like we do out front, but that's only part of it, right? We've got
Can I cut back to the old proverbial, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, he's going to eat forever.
So Lifeboat's an investment in our community, not just a charity to a bunch of people using drugs and having fun.
Right. Our goal is self-efficacy, because people have the power and the ability to make these changes in their life. We are here to make sure that they have the skills and to equip them with all available pathways to be able to do that for themselves.
Yeah. So when you look out at the world and you think about substance use, have compassion, have empathy. You don't know when that's going to be someone that's sitting right next to you that you love, and help support the groups that are doing it in a way that we can actually lift people back up, because we need to help them up. Right?
Definitely.
All right. So is there anything you'd like to take us out with? Another shout out to any event you're having or anything like that? Or I've got your phone number and all that written down. You have a website?
We do. And let me make sure I get you the right one here. Because we are having an event coming up. It'll be February 14th. We are going to be doing, it's kind of like an open house for Lifeboat Network Center. And we're still getting some of the logistics down on that, but we will be offering a Zoom piece to that as well for people who want to show up virtually. We will be doing walkthroughs, things like that. And anybody in the community who wants to check us out, I mean, please feel free to give us a call and set up a time to come and check us out. So we are keeping by appointment times currently for the most part for computer access and things like that for people who need to use the internet, fill out job applications, things like that. But that's mostly due to COVID's regulations and things like that, because we are open to the public, but we just want to make sure everybody who comes in there is safe. Safety is a big concern with that. And our website is lifeboataddictionrecovery.org. That has an updated list of all of our in-person and Zoom meetings on there, a schedule of events.
All right. I put that in the comments for everybody. Actually, I'll throw it up on the screen. Does it look right to you?
Yep.
All right. So, anything else you want to take us out with?
No, I hope everybody has a great day, and it was nice being able to talk to everybody. I hope to hear from some of you guys soon. And if there's anything we can do that you guys feel like you need in the community, or if you have any kind of ideas, I am all ears to see what we can do to just make Lansing a better place and see what we can get working on.
James, thank you so much for telling your story, and thank you so much for being part of this community and making us stronger and helping us lift some of the people that need it most back up and keep us moving as a tribe together. So everyone, stay tuned for another episode of Every Damn Day for the next 250 some, and I will see you later. Thanks a lot, James.
No problem, Jerry. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.